Hello, everybody. Thank you. It's all right. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to, I'd like to call it a fireside chat with Rabbi Davis. That would imply that it's warm in Shul, and anyone who's in Shul knows it's freezing cold in here. So welcome to the coolest Shul in town for this conversation with Rabbi Davis. What I'd like to do over the next 45 minutes or so, if it's okay, Rabbi, is just to get some insights into the man behind the man, so to speak, because I guess being a rabbi of a community, quite a large community, and this isn't meant to sound offensive, but you have to put on a bit of a face and a facade, behave in a certain way. And I guess we want to now know a bit about the real Rabbi Davis.
I just want to know, is that a question?
No, not yet. No, it's not a question yet. We're going to get to the question. I will ask the questions around here.
Long before COVID, my wife said, every time I set up for shul, wear the mask.
Okay, well.
The second thing I want to say, I will give you a chance, and to say a huge thank you to you. You have done so much.
Rabbi, you're deflecting from the difficult questions.
No, I'm flattering you. So, since you joined the community, I won't embarrass you by enumerating them, but I'm personally and generally hugely grateful to you for all that you've done, including for today.
My pleasure. Now back to the blog.
Now back to you.
Okay, so let's go back in time. I won't say how many years to your childhood, because that would be rude. But let's go back a few years and talk about the young Baruch Davis. Did you grow up in a religious family? Were there many rabbis in the family, for example?
I'd say I grew up in a family which was growing religiously.
Okay.
My parents grew up in a time where it was hard to be religious, the war years,
sure.
And everyone knows what that meant, evacuations and estrangement and all that sort of thing. But my parents married just after the war. They spent some years in America, not the America of today where you've got to know you hechsher at every shop that you find. They were in remote places. My mother would teach the local ladies how to light candles. And it was that background, against that background, that I was born after they returned to England. But one of my brothers was born in America, another spent his early childhood years in America. So in that kind of background, I was born into a family that they added another one afterwards, 4 boys. We grew up in Kingsbury. And so we were family growing religiously in a community that was growing religiously. And I was given, along with my brothers, incredible experiences. We had a youth service that was a real service.
Wow.
We were given the skills to learn how to daven, learn how to lane, and learn how to lead. And many young men who went to that service are today either rabbis or shul gabayim in their own communities.
Amazing. So one of 4 brothers.
Yes.
Were you the good one or the naughty one?
The truth is, yes, I was.
The good one.
I was the good one. I only occasionally did things that might upset the apple cart and might think cost them quite a lot of money at the moment. Such as the time that they had the whole area repaved. And I wonder what it would like if I walked through it. And it made wonderful shapes. Anyway, my parents were not amused. But other than that, I can't actually think of anything.
And were you studious generally at school? And
I wasn't a great student.
Okay.
I picked up as the years went on. And I think the years that I studied after school were the years that I didn't study in school.
But did you have a particular passion for any subjects at school?
Interestingly, I always enjoyed history.
Okay.
I knew I would never make a career out of it, but it always fascinated me to see not just how the people lived, that was in primary school, that was the emphasis, but it was also the lessons learned or not learned through history.
And did you follow that on into higher education, your passion for history?
To a lesser extent, I studied economics in higher education. Part of that was economic history, which obviously was part of it. No, if I wanted more, I had to read, which I did.
Okay, and we know you ended up in Israel. Tell us about what took you from school and university to Israel?
So in general terms, the family in which I grew up and the community was very, very Zionistic. And many, many families in the Kingsbury community went to live in Israel. And my parents were among those. But I did precede my parents there. It became a rite of passage that all four of us went to yeshiva in Israel. We went to the same yeshiva, Kerem B'Yavneh, where our son Rafi is today. And it made all of us think, do we want to live in Israel? And so on. So after university, I decided to make my home in Israel. Of course, Nechama and I met there, and our lives took quite a different turn, where we made the decision that I would go back to full-time learning and become a rabbi. We weren't quite sure where that would take us, but here we are. 38 years after that decision.
Wow.
38 years after that decision.
Wow. Yeah. And can you remember how you met Nechama?
It's unforgettable.
So it's in a lovely way.
In a lovely way, a truly lovely way. We were invited to the same wedding. And we got on the same bus to go to the wedding. And in Israel, people generally dress very casually. So in an instance, you would notice if anyone else on the bus was going to the wedding. And I was going to the wedding, and she was going to the wedding. As far as I know, on that crowded number 19 bus, nobody else was. We noticed each other. And that's how we met. I was there, and she was there. We arrived at the place called, then it was called Moshav Ora. I don't think it's a Moshav anymore. We call it Ora today, near Hadassah Hospital. And from the entrance to the wedding hall, there was a minibus. And when I look back on it, I think in Shamayim, God is saying, okay, I put them on the same bus. They've noticed each other, but nothing else. So now I'm going to put them on a minibus. And maybe they will notice each other a bit more, which we did. But I didn't talk to strangers. And
You said Nechama was strange.
And anyway, we arrived. So at that wedding, I knew a huge number of people, and the chuppah was very late. I think there was a mistake with the ketubah. They had to get another ketubah in. By the time the chuppah came, I'd spoken to everyone that I knew. And in those days, especially, the seating was very informal. And we were both looking for somewhere to sit after the chuppah. And we again noticed each other. And I have to confess, it was the Nechama who took the initiative, who said the old adage of, I think we've met somewhere before. I said, yes, on the bus. No. Anyway, we had, but never mind, that's a long story. And we actually sat next to each other or opposite each other. And suddenly, a few hours later, we realized the wedding was over and it was time to go. The relationship took off very quickly from there.
Very good. Very good. And Rabbi Rowe this morning was talking about opposites attract. What would you say you have in common, and what do you say you're very different with Nechama?
You didn't tell me you'd ask that.
I gave you some ideas about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. We have the same values. We have very, very strong values. And that became clear. We feel a tremendous commitment to Am Yisrael. We both have the sense of being born after the Holocaust, and there's what to do to try and do what we can for the Jewish world. That's what led us to make the joint decision to enter the rabbinate. And we have many things in common. It was never a case of opposites attract. No, it's very much similar. I remember someone spoke at our Sheva Brachos saying, oh, we thought opposites attracted, but hey, you guys are so similar. I just remember that being said at Sheva Brachos. a long time ago. In what ways are we different? Next question.
Now, there must be something where I mean, just around the house, or who's the tidy one, who's the untidy one?
I'm not sure I should say. It's funny. It's funny. We really are
speaks.
quite similar. We tidy each other's messes.
Okay. All right. So you're in Israel. You've decided to join the rabbinate study. And I know there's a chapter in Australia. Get me from joining or studying and joining the rabbinate to being in Australia. What happened?
Do you mean how did it happen?
Yeah, how did it happen?
How it happened is that I went for a job interview to South Africa.
Okay. You went in the wrong room?
And the cousin of that community told his brother, who at that time was teaching in the Jewish school in Adelaide, about my visit. Next thing I knew, back in Israel, I had a phone call from the rabbi of the community who recently announced that he was leaving to go to Melbourne. That rabbi happened to be a cousin of Nechama's. That's how we got to Adelaide.
Wow. And so you decided to be our very own Crocodile Dundee, go down and under. Tell me, that must have been an amazing experience for both of you.
It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Just imagine a 30-year-old rookie, because that's what I was, relatively newly married. We had 2 children at the time, going far away from family support system into a community of almost mini ingathering of the exiles. This is a predominantly English community with a few people from elsewhere. There, you couldn't say it's predominantly anything. There were Australians, of course, Australian Jews. There were English Jews, South Africans, and Romanians, and Hungarians, and Holocaust survivors, and Egyptian Jews, many Egyptian Jews, and us. So it was a real learning experience.
And if you pick the highs and lows of that time, what do you think they would be?
The lows were definitely in the first year, getting to know the community and not realizing the scale of what we'd taken on, and the need for constant communication, certainly with the lay leadership, which is a lesson that I learned and tried to impart to others since. And some hard lessons were learned along that time. The highs, we have many highs. We have many days like this and bigger. One year we decided to bring Esha Torah to the community when I realized in those days there were no branches outside Israel, maybe in America, but otherwise. So when I realized the cost, I realized the only way the cost could be borne is if every town with a Jewish community in Australia and New Zealand took on a part of the project. So we actually organized for the whole of Australia and New Zealand a 3-week visit, 3-week tour by top rabbis in Esha Torah from Jerusalem. It was amazing, amazing. And yeah, that was probably the high, but there were many similar things.
Yeah, very good. And you said you went with 2 children, or they were born in Australia, or they're born
The 2 oldest children were born in Israel.
in Israel, and then
Most of our children were born in Australia, and Rafi, as some of you will recall, was born here.
And would you say you're a hands-on dad? Did you change the nappies? Did you do those kind of things?
Of course, I changed nappies. You should know I changed nappies even before we were married, because I have younger nieces and nephews.
So you'd say you could describe yourself as a modern father in that respect?
In that respect, yes.
And in what respect, no?
Well, I'll leave it at that and move on.
Okay, so building a home in Australia, and then from there you came back to the UK?
Yes.
Directly. But all this time you're building a family and building a Jewish home, etc. How involved? Shelby Friedman so eloquently spoke about Jewish food and what a central part it plays for all of us. what does that mean to you? Do you get involved with Nechama in preparing food for festivals and special occasions?
No.
Okay. Do you think you should?
We decided early on a sensible division of labor. My role in the kitchen is to clear up at times, when I do, and to encourage. And within the rabbinate, the Chama's role is to clear up any mess I make, no, and encourage. And we're very much at one as a team. That doesn't mean we do all the same things.
Indeed. Nechama's well known for her culinary skills. So if you had to pick a favorite dish that Nechama makes, I don't say you don't like the others, but just the favorite.
I say thank you to the audience for that side. Nechama does many wonderful things. And I'm very spoiled because 7 days a week, there is a nutritious, healthy, tasty food meal on the table. And it would be unfair to pick one out from the other.
Okay, so you're very well fed. You make a mess and Nechama tidies it up. Do you do any DIY if for something needs repairing? Do any rabbis do DIY?
So it goes like this. Before I entered the rabbinate, meaning before we went to Australia, I did a lot of DIY. This I learned from my father. In our apartment in Yerushalayim, I put up shelving. We had it's called a boydum. I don't know what language boydum even is. A full ceiling where we stored our cases. I wanted to put up nets for mosquitoes, so I made frames and put the netting on. And the summer it went on, and the winter it came off. So I did all of that. I even changed light bulbs. We came to Australia, and they said, "This is your house. You're going to be far too busy doing what we're going to need you to do. Please don't touch the house. Anytime you need something done, just make a phone call."
They hadn't assessed your skills before they said that. Okay. All right, very good, very good. So we know you can do DIY and tasks. We know you can be studious. If you hadn't have joined the rabbinate, do you think there's a particular career you think you'd have followed?
So as many of you know, I did have a career before the rabbinate. I was an economist, and I worked, when we married, I was at that time working in the Ministry of Finance in Jerusalem, the Department of International Affairs. So I imagine that I would have carried on doing that. Probably would have ended up as an economic attaché in Washington or something like that for a period of time. And boring things like that.
I'm sure that'd have been interesting.
It would have been interesting. I shouldn't say it's boring. It would have been interesting. But for us, this has been much more fulfilling.
Sure, sure. And you've had an amazing time here in Chigwell and Hainault. You must have had so many different experiences during that time and learned from those. If you took those and wanted to encapsulate them and tell the young Rabbi Davis starting out in his career some nuggets, some gems of wisdom that you picked up along the way, can you think of any of those that you tell that young man starting out, if you can remember him?
There are quite a few things. First of all, it's very important to remember that you should never feel that you have arrived. Meaning that we're on a path of growth. Everyone should feel they're on the path of growth throughout their lives. But that includes the rabbi. And I learned an incredible amount from the community, people here, not here, over the years from so many different ways. And so I think that's number one, really. One is learning, one is growing, and one should never feel that one has arrived. The second thing is And it's very, very important to communicate. Communication, first of all, with one's wife, his children, with the shul leadership, with members. I think that's the third thing is to try, and this is challenging, it's aspirational, to listen to members' stories. We've learned a fascinating amount, incredible amount, just from listening to people's life stories. And sometimes I'll come home to the Cham and say, today I did a levaya, and you should have heard the story of the person who passed away. I just learned so much from listening to their story and listening to what the family had said, the way the family related to. Occasionally, I must be honest, I've learned from the negative story as well. But nonetheless, it is opening. One of my biggest regrets, huge regrets, regarding the time in Adelaide, I didn't really realize that the people that we met there, the Holocaust survivors, I could have learned so much more from. I did learn things, but not nearly enough. And I now regret, with hindsight, I didn't make a project of it. Should have gone there and sat there for hours with a notebook, and it's too late. I can give snippets of what they told me while I was there, but not the way I would like to have done.
Sure. It's fascinating, really. Looking back in time as we just are, or in fact, allowing you to look back in time. But imagine it's the summer, so we're in short Shabbos, Kiddush is finished, you're walking home with the Chama for Shabbos lunch. You can invite anyone in history to join you for lunch. Who would that be? Excluding Elvis Presley.
I wasn't thinking of him.
Sorry, just in case.
This is an interesting question. One person.
The table's full otherwise, just one.
And one person, and it's the circumstances in which we find ourselves now. I think that person will be Rabbi Sachs.
Lovely.
I can't tell you, you've heard me speak a number of times since his passing about the impact that he's had on our rabbinate during our time here. By the number of times I have thought a particular incident has happened, what would he say? And sometimes I've guessed, obviously. But now, the last few days, I find myself asking, Russia has invaded Ukraine. Our brothers and sisters in Ukraine certainly are crying out. And I've had personal cries. Rabbi Sachs, we need you. What would you say? We did once have him round at our table. Just Rabbi and Elaine and us. And again, I look back and think, gosh, I didn't milk it for all it was worth. You don't realize that, time is short and life is limited.
But he has left such a legacy that we
tremendous in videos and in writings, and for sure. So we're much better off with the legacy of Rabbi Sachs and some of his predecessors for whom there wasn't the media that
exactly
he had. This is true.
So looking forward, there's a big event coming in the summer. You're remaking Aliyah, if there is such an expression. You're going back to Israel, you're retiring. I deliberately use those quote marks. Do you think you really are retiring? What are you going to do in Israel?
So I've been asked, does a rabbi ever retire? Can one retire from the mentality of being a rabbi? I think the answer is probably no. However, that doesn't mean that I would necessarily go from this to being a pulpit rabbi somewhere else, because It is demanding, 7 days a week. And we look to devoting a lot of time to the family, particularly to our grandchildren who are waiting for us. That'd be very special. Sure. But no, I don't think we're going to retire completely. And I hope that we will find something that will engage us, we'll still feel we're contributing, but not with the intensity that we've done over the last 34 years. And we are anyway, in the medium term, continuing to work for the United Synagogue in various ways, one of which will be, we will continue, both of us, with Daf Shavua.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure everyone here and everyone online feels that you deserve a bit of a rest, both of you, having worked so hard for the community. If we take that theme a little bit further, and we're going to send you off on your tour to a desert island. I haven't got the prop, but imagine I've got a carrier bag and you can put 3 things in it. What would you put in that carrier bag?
A desert island. Well, the first thing would be good, strong hiking boots.
Okay. So you're not laying on the beach then?
I like to explore. I like to walk and I like to explore. And if I'm going to be there for a week, I'll take the time to walk around. I assume that food
supplied. We've got boxes like we had at lunchtime, plenty of them.
Oh, can't wait. No, so yes, so
so you've got 2 things left.
I got 2 things left. Okay, well, I'm a rabbi, so better say.
Let's assume they've got books already.
Oh, they've got books already there.
Sidurim, Chumoshim on this island. It's a very special island.
Right,
Very special island.
It's a very holy island. Okay. Okay. Well, in that case, the second thing would have to be, years in Australia educated us to be sun safe. Big floppy hats to wear in the sun. That's the second thing. The third thing would be sun lotion.
Okay, sunscreen. Very good. Very good. So, Rabbi, we're drawing to a close now. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left, I think, on the timing, if my maths is correct. The community will miss you immensely, and we hope you'll stay in touch with us. We have all the technology now, so there's no excuses, but we will miss you immensely. We're not talking about people now, I'm talking about things and experiences. What do you think you'll miss most when you're away from the haven that is Chigwell and Hainault?
Most? Oh, the truth is that many things come together to combine, and we will miss being here on a number of layers. So one of them is, of course, the community itself, which Lindsay likes to speak of the community as a Chigwell and Hainault family, but we really do feel that. And the recent fundraiser event, to me, showed that in the most incredible way. I mean, it's very gratifying that we reached the funds target, but the fact that we came together in such a united way was just so powerful. So for sure, that is the one level. And I've really enjoyed the opportunities to, to teach and to talk and learn together and that sort of thing. Yes, and to celebrate together and sometimes to cry together. That is something that's been very, very special about this community. And one of the things that we've picked up is that many people who've left the community still feel a part of it. And the Chama recently started a new WhatsApp group, ex-Chigwellians in Israel. And the way it's pulled together as a group is just incredible. We've got some 40 families now from the community living in Israel. And it's just an incredible thing. So that's one level. The other thing is just the general environment, it's a really nice place to live. And I emphasize, we are not running away from this place. We are going to. Necham has commented to me a number of times since we handed in our notice how comfortable it is to be in the general environment, where everything is, and people know us, in us, the health center, and us, when we get the car fixed, Nechama just has to walk in there, and they say to her, "Hello, Mrs. Davis, how can we help?" Before she even says anything. So it's a very pleasant environment to have been in all these years, and possibly increasingly so as the years have gone by. So it's a massive wrench for us.
Well, Rabbi, look, I'm going to have to draw this to a close. I think time's running out. But firstly, thank you and Nechama for everything you do for us. We'll have a proper send-off to God in the summer. Thank you for sitting in the hot seat today and sharing some insights to the real Rabbi Davis. And thank you online and those in the shul for participating. Thank you. Rabbi. That's short.